Hey there hunters, welcome back to the Gunners Guild. Sorry about the clickbait title, but today we're going to take a look at the quote infinite laser cannons. This video is going to be short and it's based on the Reddit post I saw discussing the potential of the infinite laser setup, and I wanted to try and shed some light on the laser for the cannon. So we're going to do a few tests and setups for the infinite lasers so we can talk about it and learn something hopefully. So to start, I'm going to be using the same set on all these weapons, of course. Talismans, basically that matter, are I have the key base fortification, if you wonder why I have the big key bases, and a 7% thread thrifter, which you can get on the maps. I kept that on across the board, and all I'm really doing is changing the weapon for these tests. Everything else is going to be exactly the same. Also, do note that damage numbers themselves are kind of misleading on the target dummy, as you cannot crit the target dummy, nor do they register the same numbers as they display, and elemental is highly rated on the target dummy, so what I'm getting at is don't really worry about the numbers, it's not that important for the tests. Alright, so the first of the two cannons here is going to be the one touted about on the Reddit posts. This first one here is Frost Husk's cannon, and that is loaded up with almost 60% thread thrift and 40% speed charge. The idea is that you can gain more energy than you can actually expend with the laser. And yeah, it does kind of work. You can see that the bar does not lower. But the issue here is that the laser will still have a limit to the amount of ticks it can get before it can actually shoot its final shot. So there is no infinite laser, just a really long laser. Now personally, I'm not a huge fan of this because there's like zero time in hunt to actually use all of this laser besides on the first trap. But in groups, yeah, I could see this being pretty hot. Now of course we're not going to end the test here. We have another cannon, which is on the opposite side of the tree over here with the Ember Plume one. And has a similar setup, but it's almost 90% speed charge and 30% thread thrift. It should have a similar effect, but this one is fire element, so you could technically run this on two different elements, which covers a much broader array of monsters, right? The other idea is that perhaps thread thrift increases the number of ticks of the laser, or there's some relation of like speed charge and thread thrift that would change the effects of the laser ticks, like how many you have or how long the duration is, something like that. But we're going to give it a shot just so we have it tested on both sides. And yeah, they're going to end up pretty much the same, 43 ticks either way, similar damage, only real difference here is the element type. So that is an interesting note. Now we can also compare the time it takes to use this laser compared to the standard like hot laser setup that generates heat much faster, but then obviously has a shorter laser duration because we don't have as much thread thrift or speed charge. So we're going to loosely compare the times it takes to shoot the laser to completion, and then the damage output to get a general average of the damage per second during the laser. So we can see that despite the laser getting more ticks and the overall higher damage, you really have about the same damage per second regardless, so you're not really getting anything out of it. You have to choose between front loading your damage more into like this huge long laser duration, or having a weaker laser but being able to generate much more heat to get them more often. It's hard to say which is better because long laser will favor traps and groups, whereas the hot laser will favor solo play where you just have less openings. And then I had another idea, of course. Why bother trying to get infinite laser at all? Why not just set it up so your laser can get max ticks, but it's still going to eat through like your ammo clip, and once the bar is about empty, that's when the final laser goes off, right? Then you could spend the other skills for more damage stuff. So this is the cannon I went for that test. Do note that you cannot crit the target dummy, so this, crit chain here is worthless. Long story about crits, but it will be more effective against monsters. But the idea is that you can take off some of these skills to put in more offensive skills, and we're still going to have the full laser duration. So obviously I put on Desperation for more damage, and then I have crit again for monsters, but you could like do something else to boost your target dummy numbers if you want. So now that we're done shooting this, you can see that it is actually a net gain, and it should be even better on targets because you can actually crit those, and you can probably keep chain crit up and all that stuff. You can also swap out chain crit for damage if you want, but I think chain crit's can be really good on monsters. So I think this is going to be the better approach for getting the most out of the laser while still having more just general damage. It's technically better DPS, but barely, and again, you're still going to have to compare it to like the hot laser setup, which just generates way more heat. But to summarize this, infinite laser is not a thing. 43 ticks is about the max regardless. It's timed and not based on any amount of heat reduction, speed charge, or thread thrifter, things like that. There's also no effective DPS gain for going the full laser route over something like the hot laser. You can also do a mix of the two, which is technically the better way to go. It's more DPS, but it's still going to take longer to generate the heat compared to the hot laser setup. But yeah, that's going to be all for me. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to my Patreon members. Appreciate y'all a whole bunch. If anyone wants to talk shop about Wild Hearts or gaming in general, feel free to join my Discord in the description below. But yeah, peace and good luck out there, hunters.